So I've never made a YouTube video before, but I'm doing my YouTube video on strictly withdrawal. I've watched quite a few videos, and I've done a lot of research on the Ativan withdrawal and quitting Ativan and tapering off. So just to give you a little bit of a history, I've had 28 surgeries. My major ones is I'm a heart transplant recipient. I had a hysterectomy, and I have 2 rods and 28 screws in my spine. I had severe scoliosis, so they fixed it with 2 rods and 28 screws. June 7th of 2014, I got diagnosed with valley fever in my brain. I had a valley fever fungus that was pretty good size. And so on June 7th, 2014, I went into brain surgery for them to punch biopsy it because they couldn't remove it because the fungus had grown so much like installation that it pretty much spread out and stuck to the nervous system in the brain. So they couldn't just go in and remove it. It wasn't just a tumor or just a fatty tissue. It was literally a fungus growing and attaching to everything in the brain. So my story starts with Ativan being administered on June 7th. Right before I went into brain surgery, I had a really bad panic attack. Prior to brain surgery, I was having panic attacks and I couldn't figure out why or where they came from. And it was the valley fever laying its, nest on different parts of my brain that was triggering the panic attack. The valley fever went to my brain because of me being a heart transplant. I'm so immunocompromised that my body couldn't naturally fight valley fever. And because I live in Arizona, that's what happened. So I came out of brain surgery and I had another panic attack. I literally just had my brain cut open from here to here on the top of my skull. And I don't know anybody that's okay with that, but I definitely wasn't. So they came in and they gave me Ativan, and it relaxed me instantly and calmed me down. And I spent a month in the hospital, just recovering and making sure that the medication that they started through a central line in my chest was working and that it was killing the valley fever. So, about 3 days into the hospital, they stopped giving me Ativan. So they gave me the first dose on the 7th, and then I didn't need any more on the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th. Well, on the 10th, I started to have what I thought was getting the flu. And now that I've poured so much research into this, I was actually going through withdrawal. So I started getting shakes and chills, and I was really sweaty, and then the panic sunk in. And I had another panic attack. So they rushed in and they gave me Ativan, and everything went back to normal. Well, the medication that I was on to fight the valley fever, which is posaconazole, also known as Noxafil, and meropenem, actually increased anxiety and panic and all that stuff. They're pretty nasty medications. They work tremendously, and they do their job. Oh my God, they do their job. But they come with some pretty nasty side effects. So I really didn't have an option. I wasn't going in and saying, look, I need something for panic, I need something for anxiety. I literally got blindsided by this medication that I've grown to hate tremendously. And it really bothers me that we have so many people who are on Ativan or Valium who are on benzodiazepines or benzodiazepines who just take them and they're not reading about them. They're not researching them. I have been in the medical field since I was born. So I got my transplant when I was 4 years old, and since then I have literally lived the medical field, and I'm learning the medical field. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nurse, but I'm definitely an advocate for myself, and I know what I can and can't have. And the first thing that I learned when I was about 10 was always research the medication that you're taking. Always do your research. So as I got older, when I became a teenager, that was the first thing I would do, is I would get a medication, I would read the pamphlet, and based on the pamphlet and the percentage of people that had the symptoms would determine if I took that medication or not. I don't know if it was a combination of valley fever and panic, brain surgery, and I had a lot of other things going on, but I didn't read about Ativan. And Ativan turned into, okay, we'll give it to you when you're having a panic attack in the hospital, and then they sent me home with it. And then Ativan turned into an anticonvulsant medicine. I am allergic to Keppra, very bad. Keppra does not do well with my body at all. I swell up and I get burning in the face and my lips start to turn blue. My body doesn't like Neurontin. I get burning in all throughout my nerves. Neurontin does terrible things. Lamictal was a really bad one. It actually caused a 3rd-degree burn on my nose right here, and I had to use medication to treat it because the burn was so bad. From the inside out, my skin started to peel and fall, and that was the first dose injected through an IV. I think it was over an hour that it went in, and it was a half an hour. Within the hour, it started to burn, and my nose started to peel, and my skin went from this pretty white patch right here to pink, fresh flesh. So Lamictal was another bad one. Lyrica was a bad one. Cymbalta was a bad one. I've tried about 8 different anticonvulsant medicines, and none of them seem to work. So their theory is that my seizures were caused from the brain surgery, which, okay, I could see that. That's definitely a possibility. Last year, I would say September, October, I started researching Ativan a lot. And I made the decision to come off of Ativan, but to do it the right way. Because I'm already so seizure prone, and in my personal belief and what I've seen and when I listen to my body, my seizures are stress related. The more stressed I get, the more likely I am to have a seizure. The more worried I get, the more likely I am to have a seizure. If I panic or I worry about being alone, I have a seizure. If I have to go back into a situation that stresses me out or upsets me, I have a seizure. And then I would just take an Ativan. So I was on 1 milligram 3 times a day, 8 a.m., and then between 1 and 3 p.m., and then 8 p.m. That was my regimen. And I've seen a lot of people that take, half a milligram 3 times a day, or, different amounts, and I've seen a lot of people cold turkey, and I was terrified to be cold turkey, especially being seizure prone. So I'm in the beginning stages of withdrawal, full withdrawal. Like I said, starting last October, I went from 3 milligrams a day to 1 milligram in the morning, half a milligram in the afternoon, and 1 milligram at night. And I did that for 2 weeks. And then I went to 1 milligram in the morning, a quarter of a tablet, so half of a half milligram during the day, and then 1 milligram at night. 2 weeks. And then the next 2 weeks, I did 1 milligram in the morning, 1 milligram at night. Those 2 weeks were very, very hard, especially during the day. The more I came off the Ativan, the more I felt like a human. The more I felt like I got my life back. Even eliminating that half tablet in between. And so around February, I was on a half milligram in the morning, a half milligram at night. And it was just tapering. I took my milligram and I cut it in half, and then I cut the halves into half. So I was taking 3/4 of a milligram twice a day. And then I eventually made it down to half a milligram twice a day. Well, I had a really, really, really bad seizure. There was a lot of drama going on in my family, and my cousin passed away drinking. So I will tell you right now, I am 100% against alcohol because it's taken so many people in my life from me, it's ridiculous. But it was his poor choice to drink and drive, so he was selfish and he lost his life in that. Um, so I had a really bad seizure when that happened, and I got rushed to the hospital. It was my first grand mal seizure. I had a bunch of partial seizures and focal seizures and just a bunch of different kind of seizures. Every time I turned around, I was getting diagnosed with a different kind of seizure. I would see one doctor and they would say this, and I would see another doctor and they would tell me that. So they backtracked me and they put me on 0.5 milligram 3 times a day again. So then I had to backtrack and go back to, 2 weeks of this, and then 2 weeks down to 3/4, and then 2 weeks to half and half. Well, here we are, September, and it's been almost a year that I have been tapering. I am now, let's see. So last week on Wednesday would have been my 1 week that I didn't have any Ativan at all. Nothing. And my dog passed away. My dog of 6 years, she was my emotional support animal. When I had cancer, she laid on my stomach when they took the cancer out. It wasn't stomach cancer. I had cervical cancer, so she would lay on my stomach and try to lick the wounds. And when I had my back surgery, she would lay on my back and she would try to lick this big scar I have on my back, 13.5 inches. When I had brain surgery, they brought her into the hospital, and I just remember this lady nurse came in and said, "You can't have your dog in here." I said, "Actually, I can. First of all, she's an emotional support animal, and second of all, here's a piece of paper that says I can. So if you have a problem with that, unfortunately, I'm sorry, but you can send in your supervisor." And this really kick-ass nurse named Gear came in and, "Oh, you have your dog? Yeah, she's my emotional support animal. Here you go." "Oh, fine, no problem." So my dog gets up on the bed and comes around, and literally, she's a little chihuahua and lays herself entirely across my head. And I'm just sitting there. And so last week, I found out that she had cancer. And she had internal bleeding from the cancer. So I had to put her down. And I had never had to put a dog down like that. I always lost my dogs naturally, whether it was they passed away in their sleep, or they passed away while I was holding them, or, when I was a kid, they would get hit by a car or something. It was never, we go in, they would tell me what was wrong, and then I had to make the decision. So that was really hard to put my baby down of, 6 years. So I was sitting there, and my face started to get really tight, and my left side of my cheek, started to raise up. And I thought, well, I'm going to have a seizure if I don't take Ativan. And I fought with it for a good 20 minutes. I do, but I don't. I do, but I don't. Am I going to have enough time? Is this going to kick in soon enough by the time they bring her in? And the people were so amazing. They take as much time as you need. We'll bring her in when you're ready. And so I took 0.5 milligram. And within 20 minutes, I just came back. I came back down from withdrawal. I could fully wrap my head around the situation of what was going on with my baby and start to understand that this was the last time I was going to see her alive. She was with me for so many important things in my life, and